Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kata Chronicles. Hi guys, I know it's been a couple of weeks, but welcome back to another episode of the Kata Chronicles. I had technical difficulties one week, and then I was waiting on a very special guest, which we've got here today with us. This guy is probably best known for being a guitarist of both Diction and some time spent in Ninebar. It's my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Chris Thomson. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no worries, bruv. Diction, Ninebar, obviously two very important bands for London hardcore scene. When did you guys start Diction? Because I knew you from about the Southbound EP-ish time onwards.
Yeah, Diction was sort of from the late 90s. So I actually didn't start the band. They existed as a bit more of like a punk band before I joined.
Okay.
One of my very good mates, Nick, was the singer of the band. And then I think I joined maybe like 98, 99. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
My memory's a bit hazy here. And we sort of, Diction started off as being a little bit more like, sort of punk focused, kind of like almost West Coast sounding and like Pennywise kind of vibe to it.
So skate punk, speed punk type stuff.
Yeah. And then gradually like a little bit, we all sort of collectively got into more like Sick of It All and like Madball, and eventually just started playing more of the music that we were listening to. And then we also discovered Knuckle Dust and UK Beat Down, and just kind of continued in that direction. We released a 4-way split actually before Southbound.
Right.
It was with Eviscerate AD. I don't know if you remember that band.
Yep, I remember him because Den's now in what was my old band, Warchrist.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. A couple of other bands. That was, I can't remember what year that was. Maybe it was very early 2000s. Again, someone else. Yeah. And then Southbound, which was Diction, Ninebar, and Cartel. Yeah. I had joined Ninebar by that point. Joining Ninebar was like your favorite band, asking you to come and play with them. I can remember it actually happening at a gig, a show in at the Dome in Tufnell Park.
Right.
Yeah, and I can remember Ninebar, guitarist of Ninebar, coming up to me and saying, "We're looking for a second guitarist. You're from South London. Think it should be you." That was kind of the criteria. And then I did 13 years with Ninebar.
Because you did Southbound, you did Raising the Bar, and you did 900.
That's right.
Yeah. Was you playing 7-string guitar on that? Because you played 7-string guitar with Diction for a bit, didn't you?
Well, yeah, essentially that 7-string guitar, that it was a Jackson that I bought. My girlfriend, now wife, was at university in Norwich, and like I went up to see her and just saw this reverse angled headstock Jackson sitting 7-string sitting in a guitar shop. I really didn't have enough money to buy it, but I was just like, let's go. And I can remember just like writing riffs for Diction, and that really like changed the sound of that band. That's like, I credit that guitar with being like what changed our sound and like really shaped.
Is that just the second album? Is that just the second Diction album?
No, so that was on Southbound. I had that guitar, and we had like, it didn't just come like Steve, the other guitarist. She did 6-string guitar. But it just meant we could like do some interesting things in terms of like the way the riffs worked. And I did start playing that with Ninebar, but I quit like playing drop D tuning, and it was a bit weird. So I stopped doing that after a while. The Southbound recording was really fun, like just sort of hanging out in a farm.
I don't think something like that could really happen these days anymore, just because like trying to organise one band to record in a timely fashion to get it on a release is one thing. Organising 3 bands to all be lined up ready to go.
Yeah, and 3 bands that I don't know, quite a lot of sketchiness in those three bands. Like, it's like, I know it's like a South London thing. It's just like it was very it wasn't easy.
It's just one of, yeah. It's just like when I think about the people that are involved in them bands, it's just Ninebar. I would look at and go probably the most organised of them three bands.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah,
because I think Fatty and Matty would be both on it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Kata, I would imagine being the most chaotic out of them three.
I would think so. I mean, the one that I didn't play in, but well, obviously, fair representation.
Yeah, Diction. I mean, Ian's fairly organised. Obviously, I worked with Ian quite a bit with Proven, so it was like I'm used to him being quite drilled in.
Listen, I don't have a bad thing to say about any of the people in any of these bands. Yeah, the funny thing though, one thing to mention is that Matt, who was our normal drummer for Diction, like cut his hand before we recorded the tracks for Southbound. So I actually had Sam Thredder play drums on Southbound.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So on that,
okay. Was it recorded at Crow's Nest?
No, that was forgetting the name of the studio now. It was out in Essex. Guy did a lot of recordings for a lot of hardcore bands of the area. It'll come back to me.
Yeah.
It was good to like.
Because it would have been about the era that Crow's Nest really kicked in, wouldn't it? It would have been like 2005, 2006 to start Crow's Nest, I think.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, yeah, it's maybe worth spending some time on like the sort of like Croydon scene that Diction came out of.
Yeah, definitely.
So Croydon being in Zone 6 of Greater London. Is it London? Is it not? Don't know.
It doesn't have a compass point as a postcode. That's my basis of whether you're London or not.
All right, so Greater London. But yeah, there was a fairly healthy punk scene when we were kind of like getting into music in Croydon. The guys in Diction, and so
was the CAD around back then?
The what?
KADT, CAD.
Yeah, that band.
Around that sort of time,
yeah, they were around there. A few other bands, select bands. There was like a punk record shop in Croydon called Shake Some Action that had a rehearsal space, and some bands played there. I believe Knuckle Dust played there. I think I don't know, slightly before my time, but I think maybe some like 25 to Life played there or something. Like bands would come.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. It might be misremembering a lot of this stuff, to be honest. But yeah, and then Beano's, which is big like secondhand record store, like quite famous location. So they had a few venues, so it was a kind of healthy music scene, and so there were lots of other people to find who were like sort of finding their way in music and in different styles in of heavy music. There were like rock and metal scenes, pubs. There was the Cartoon that was a venue in West Croydon.
Yep, I remember the Cartoon.
Reputation. It was shut down for a while, then it reopened. We used to put on shows there and play shows with various bands there. But one of the sort of points of connection was Sam's house, basically. So Sam, people might know from like a sludge band called Slapdragger. He was also in some hardcore bands like Frightener, but he's also producer.
Frightener, yeah. I forgot about Frightener.
Yeah, that's right. But also had recorded a lot of bands and just like a very talented musician, really. Kind of like all-rounder, drums, guitar, whatever else. And we would just kind of like collectively hang out there quite a lot. It was just a shared space and there was lots of instruments around and we could listen to music. And eventually Sam turned part of that house into a recording studio, bit of a rehearsal space, which was called the Crow's Nest, kind of because it was at the.
I think it's safe to say most LBU bands have recorded at least something there.
Quite possibly, years. Quite possibly, yeah. So yeah, it became an option. Through connection to hardcore scene, and lots of bands sort of found out, and lots of bands came through and recorded material there. I did, for instance. And yeah, but it was just like a real point of connection, met lots of people. And I guess the two sort of like hardcore bands that kind of like came out of that Croydon scene at the time were Diction, and then another band that didn't actually record called Downtrodden.
Yes, that was Mark Doolan's band, wasn't it? Mark
Yeah,
Doolan,
it was Mark Dylan and Sam Prey drums
yeah,
for that band. Had a very talented guitarist called Adam Hooton who went on to
yeah,
become a guitar teacher. And yeah, really those two bands were one that came out. Downtrodden didn't really record; they should have done, but they played with like Unearth at the Underworld. Um, they were a really good band. I wish they'd actually found a way to record something, but I think it kind of speaks to uh, some of the chaos around South London hardcore bands.
I think it's not. I think it's not just South London. I think that's London and LBU
Yeah,
specifically. Like our sort of Ruction LBU type scene is very much like we should probably record something, and 5 years later we actually get round to getting off our ass and doing it.
yeah. You know, life gets in the way. So what are you gonna?
I mean, there's what? How many years between Ninebar recordings?
Yeah, a lot with Diction.
Yeah, I guess Diction, yeah, because it's the two albums, and there's like a good chunk of time between the first and the second.
Yes,
Definitely.
there is. Yes, there is.
From the depths and lifestyles is like massive, like
Yeah, yeah. We had to get.
7 8 years, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Not rubbing it in, but yeah, about 7 8 years.
Yeah, it took us a while. Yeah, we were writing a lot, and things were happening in people's lives as they do, you know, and people moving
Yeah.
and all the rest of it took a while. But like, I was really, really keen to get that Lifestyles, the Poor Hopeless album out, because like, I think we probably knew at the time it's the last one we probably had in us. Like maybe we'd
Yeah.
but like we'd had those tunes for a while, and really wanted.
There was a demo that had come out of a couple of the tunes a couple of years beforehand, wasn't there?
That's right. Yeah,
The track
we
with
just
EBS on it had come out.
yeah, we had a demo. It took us a while to like mix and master as well. These things drag on. Yeah. So I think what was interesting about those two bands I mentioned, Diction and Downtrodden, and you actually hear it on more on Lifestyles than the initial, the first Diction album. Sorry, is like there was a real influence of kind of southern metal in there as well, like Nola style metal.
I think Ian described it to me as like Chris has been listening to a load of pirate music.
Yeah, I mean more like Crowbar, to be honest. Like Crowbar was like a big influence on that Croydon hardcore scene, if you like that kind of down tune Nola.
Yeah, I mean Sam talks about Crowbar like non-stop. It's like one of his favorite bands of all time. So
yeah. So that was a big influence. You hear it, and I think in my mind, and this is pretty good as a window how I might work. Sometimes it is I quite like the connection of it being like Southern and South London. Line between those two things for no good reason. But yeah, that was and you can hear that, and like that was a lot. We listening, and of course you were in a band with some of these people I'm talking about, and you know.
Yeah. Yes, I've had the fortune of working with Adam and with Mark Doolan.
Yeah, and you see in Mark's guitar playing, some of his riff choices, you hear some of that as well, and with Adam Harris as well, who
Adam Harris. I mean, Doolan's guitar choices baffle me sometimes. And not to say that Adam's don't, because some of the stuff that Adam went on to write with Infraction, I was just like, why does it do that? Like, why that specific time choice that isn't 4/4 and isn't 5/4? It's like 4.5/4 or some bullshit.
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on in the way that I think the group of people that are around Croydon, particularly at that time, thought about music and like how sort of deep into it and how much of a focus it was in our lives. And there were some very good like technicians amongst that group as well.
I mean,
definitely not counting myself there, but
I would, because like, even the stuff on the Diction albums, it's not as straightforward hardcore as say like a Knuckle Dust or straightforward beatdown like a Ninebar. It's very sort of, you can hear the influences aren't just straightforward hardcore. You can hear they've been pulled from all different sources, sort of thing. But particularly more sort of, I mean, the term progressive metal might not be quite right, but you can hear there's like other more technical elements thrown in there, especially on the second Diction album.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to like how much we were all kind of like hanging out and influencing each other and like discovering stuff together and like pushing each other a little bit. I think we had a sort of space like the Crow's Nest sounds place where you can talk about music, then you could go and play music, like just kind of jam and stuff. That was quite an important part, I think, of how our tastes in music developed, and like discovering new things and like growing together and experimenting with music.
I mean, the couple of times I recorded there, he would always be like, he'd disappear in the bedroom and play you some record of some random shit you'd never heard of. And you'd be like, oh, fuck, that's really cool. And then you'd be like, shit, we need to rewrite, like, or we need to restructure this or something because I want to incorporate some of that shit now. And it was just always like that sort of free-flowing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good time, like hard times, like, but we like, got through them together, and music was just like the outlet for a lot of us, I think, who like, as it is for people who, in fact, most people who find hardcore music is just like, there's like other shit going on.
Oh, yeah.
Life. They're dealing with.
So when you joined Ninebar, like, you joined Ninebar, mate, because we want a second guitarist. You start work straight on Southbound with them?
Yeah, those tunes were pretty much written, from what I can remember, when I joined. So it was more about me just like learning, just learning the parts and then getting into the studio fairly soon after that. I can't, it would have been like, pretty, sorry, I'm just having a power issue, John. 1 second.
Okay.
So the Southbound tunes for Ninebar were written when I joined, so it was really I didn't sort of start writing with Ninebar until after that. And interesting, the writing processes sounds so overblown. You're like these like hardcore albums that we just like cobbled together, wrote them, but it was like very different between Diction and Ninebar. Diction would be, I basically wrote all the riffs and like structured the songs, and then caught everyone them, and like obviously they had director and like Ian parts and like drum, but like just very like, here's the tunes, and now we're gonna go and put them together. Whereas Ninebar was generally more organic. We'd like spend time in rehearsal studios, just like trying stuff out. Like Matt would have a riff, or Ollie would have like some idea for drum part, or I would have something, and I would try something. Like those songs kind of came together quite organically, which is quite interesting, I think, as a point of comparison, to how that worked. And obviously Ninebar had some incredible tunes during that period. The only one that I remember really being like structured and sort of came in full and didn't really come out of that organic process was Read These Books.
I was going to say, that sounds like it's very much a deliberate song.
Yeah, it's fully thought. It was fully thought, that one. I think that was even written before I joined, maybe, as well.
Like the basic was there before you started, and then obviously, like, I mean, my favourite tune off that album is Choke.
Yeah, that's probably my favourite tune as well. Yeah.
The opening riff to that is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that would have been that just came out of maybe Matty had an idea or I had an idea, and like it just came out.
And just combined it. There you go. And the thing is, like, I've never written like that, because I've worked with Adam and Mark in the past for the most part. It's always been the sit down in someone's room, bash a couple of ideas together, then like I would say to Adam, well, especially with him fresh, I'd say to Adam, I'll do this, do that. Like, these are the ideas I think of because I've got these set of lyrics that I want to use. I'd give him a couple of ideas of like other tunes that existed, like something like this and something like this. And then kind of leave him to it, and he'd be like, oh, you mean this? And he'd go away and play some bits and pieces, or pull up something he already had on his hard drive, because that fucker's got like millions of riffs just sitting on a hard drive where he just seems to do it day to day. Just that's what he does, goes home. So he'd just pull something, I'd be like, yep, that do that. And you just like mesh them together, find a couple of transitions, and off you went. And that was pretty much, Proven was pretty similar from what I understand. It'd just be Adam and Mark would sit there. In everything, because the first demo I had nothing to do with the writing of, apart from the lyrics we added, because that had already been written and recorded before they even approached me to join the band. So it was like, I just got 5 songs. I was like, okay, I guess I'll go and figure out these.
Life of a vocalist, that's often what happens. You just like presented
we've buried the lead long enough, I think. we've spoken about Adam, we've spoken about Mark. You were also the vocalist of what I have always said put out the greatest UK hardcore album of all time, and that is you were the vocalist for Hellbent Diehard, along with Mark and Adam on guitar and Sam, who we've mentioned, on drums. That album is absolutely fucking nuts. And there's so much that seems to have gone into it that people don't know, because it's not been available digitally anywhere, so people don't really know. Someone has thrown it up on YouTube, and I swear to God it's not me. I'm fucking always speaks about it. It has gone up on YouTube as a whole album. They've not cut it into tracks or anything, so people can listen to it. That album is nuts. I've heard bits and pieces about it from Ian, from Adam. Adam doesn't seem to remember an awful lot about the writing and recording that album. Apart from stress.
Yeah, there was a bit of that.
There's also, for people that don't know, there's 2 entries on a blog website that tell like a background story. The first 2 chapters are a background story to it.
I can talk to maybe some of the process there. I think it's also useful just to reflect just before that album and how Hellbent Diehard kind of came about. We used to talk about Hellbent Diehard like when we were on like show flyers and stuff as like from the ashes of Downtrodden. So the band Downtrodden I was talking about were like really important. And Sam was the drummer in that band. Mark was guitarist, and really like I think they were looking for like a next thing to do as Downtrodden was sort of coming to an end for whatever reason. And we're just like coming up with some ideas. And initially it was just like the kind of recording things, and then like one of us who was at the Crow's Nest or whatever would jump on and do some vocals. Whether it be Nick from Diction or I would at the time. And there's a demo that came out 2003 2004 which like people have described as like sounding like a gang recorded like a demo. There's lots of different voices on it as well, and like with Sam is in the place as well, I am, Nick. It just sounded like this like sort of collective that sort of like came together to make this demo, and that's really what it was as well. It wasn't really like a like solidified band at the time, but then I think just after that demo came around, it was kind of, or maybe as we were recording it, had a conversation with Sam, and like I wanted to do vocals for that band because I kind of didn't want anyone else to do it. Because I could sort of see the potential in it and the like talent, and I really didn't want that to become like a generic sort of like hardcore band, particularly in terms of the lyrics and the vocal style.
It certainly didn't.
It didn't. But I was like, there's something more interesting going on here, and thankfully, like Sam and the others were up for me like being the singer. Because I hadn't really sung for other bands, done little bits and pieces here, but I'm not like a vocalist by trade. I had to like learn quite a bit as well. Like I had to look after my for instance, which I was not good at. So I was really pleased about that. And then I guess the sort of missing piece of the puzzle, and something we haven't really spoken about, is James, or a lot of people know James as Pyman, who played in Last Hours of Torment. And Pi like played a lot of like did a lot of tours with Knuckle Dust and stuff. He's another very like talented, like obsessive musician. Very good bass player. We'd sort of become friends with him. I had particularly, can't really remember how, just through like hardcore scene. He and I really connected particularly, but like he also did with like Sam and the rest of the band, and he ended up being the bass player as well for Hellbent Diehard. I think that was like a trigger for it becoming something else.
Because his bass playing is on another level that doesn't exist in many bands.
Yeah, and he's doing like he's very studious and like very like practice for like hours and hours a day on his own, just for the sake of getting better at the time. And so that I think Pi and me sort of like coming full time into the band, and it going from being a sort of collective to being something a bit more structured, was like a trigger for it to become something else that ultimately became the album. And there were a few sort of like strands that came through the writing process that were kind of like principles that came about for how
Yeah.
he approached this. Like, so not so much myself, but like the rest of the band were quite obsessive about not repeating like riffs in their exact
Oh, I've experienced them things with them too.
yeah. So yeah, sure. So like variation became really important.
Yeah.
So like no repetition.
Variation on every bar of the riff.
Correct. And yeah, and so there was a lot of folks there just trying to like do some different things and like keep things interesting, a little bit experimental in places, different.
Yeah.
And then you know, the way, because of that complexity that was like inherent in the music, again, this was like, I didn't want the vocals to be just like about, I don't know, unity or something, like the lyrics to just be like very generic topic. But at the same time, I didn't want them not to be. Like, just one of the ideas that started forming in my head was like, I want this band, if you just like want to listen to a hardcore band and you want, I don't know, some like mosh parts, beat downs, whatever else, and you don't want to like have to think about it too much, I wanted that to be there for people in the books.
Yeah.
But I also wanted a couple of additional layers of complexity there for people who wanted to find it. Yeah. And this is similar to the approach in like the instrumentation as well. You know, you can just listen to it and there's some like riffs that you can just like kick people in the face to, but there's also like a little bit more there as well. And so I wanted that to be present in the lyrics as well. And so I was like, okay, like at a surface layer, just want these to be like hardcore tunes and you can kind of read them like that or hear them like that.
Yeah.
But I also want to make some cultural references in there as well to like literature or art or something else as well. And then I was like, I don't know if that's like complex enough. So I was like, actually, I think we should have a concept that underpins all of this, like a concept album. Let's make a concept album, basically.
Yeah.
So I sort of started developing this narrative, which I retrofitted to the demo tunes that we'd recorded previously and sort of like extended out of that into something more complex. And like going to be some nerd stuff and hey,
I'm the biggest fucking nerd on the planet and I've been dying to hear the stories behind this fucking album for years.
So the sort of concept that runs through it actually kind of came out of a dream that I had about like this huge mechanoid creature like destroying civilization and then realizing that that mechanoid robot was me,
right,
and sort of like flying around and stuff, and it's sort of like that was the like embryo of it. And so that's why the album cover is that blueprint of that machine.
That's the mech on the front of the
I mean, this is how I remember it. I think other people in the band might have different angles, but like this is certainly like some of this might be retrofitted to like explain what the things we did. But yeah, anyway, like I had this dream, and sort of the song Harbinger like is based around that dream, and sort of things extend out of that. But the kind of narratives that was running through it was like a gang of people, which was kind of us in the future, actually like battling this kind of robot in a way. But I didn't think that was complicated enough, so I started introducing like the gang and the gang culture set in this future world also was organized around the way that the Romans organized their legions. And so
from the first two chapters that are available on the blogspot, that's what I got. I got this sort of Roman legion, but as if the Roman Empire almost hadn't fallen.
Yeah, and sort of descended into like gang culture and persisted, but also like dealing with like corrupt governments who had this giant mechanoid robot. And I mean, you can see why I didn't complete that story in writing, but it was kind of in my head, and you can listen through.
Did you get any further with it written down, or is it just them two parts?
Just those two parts, loose sketches, but like the lyrics in the songs. So the one that's most explicit in like drawing out that concept is Azidahaka.
Yeah.
Azidahaka being a name for a type of god, I guess, in a religion. So it's got this cultural reference point, but it also relates to the story. That's the one that probably has the most explicit sort of like narrative, and you can kind of hear it. There's something else going on.
That's also the most insane song on the album. Because if I remember Adam talking about that to me before, he's like, it took him like 6 weeks to learn the parts because like Pyman wrote a lot of that musically.
Yeah.
And it's all over the place.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah. It's just like it does sound a little bit like someone having a nervous breakdown, and it kind of is. Because I think, you know, just thinking about the things I've described in terms of like, I mean, what you just said about Adam, like we put a lot into that album, sort of like mentally, and I think that's probably why we didn't carry on much longer after that. I don't feel bad about it, but I think we burnt ourselves out creatively, and like personally.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, not to put words in his mouth, but a conversation I've had with Adam is like, you know, that album was essentially the death of the band because it was so fucking hard to put it together and get it all sorted out, which is understandable because it is like, it's insane. That album is absolutely nuts. One of the things that always cracked me up that he told me though is Hellbent started off with the idea of being a Crowbar rip-off band, and I've said to him many times, if that was your aim, you missed it by a fucking million miles.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, that, you know, Crowbar was a big influence on our scene, and it did kind of start out with like, the approach to riffs, and you still hear it in places. Certainly on the demo, you can hear that. But yeah, we just descended into madness, and that madness then extended to I think things we did around how we presented the album. So one is that, I don't know, we kind of wanted it to be challenging to listen to almost. Like that so slightly contradicting what I was saying about you just want to be able to listen to it at a surface level and just appreciate a hardcore album. We wanted people to have to like engage with it in a way that was like a little bit challenging. So the things that resulted in, for instance, is all of the kind of interludes that are on the album. And so those interludes, one other sort of stylistic thing that runs throughout Hellbent Diehard, which I'm not really sure like where it came from, but it was always there. It's kind of anime, and just to have some other cultural reference point in there thrown into the mix there for no real.
I was going to ask about that because there's lots of like, I think it's Guyver is quite heavily used in that. The original Guyver anime 12-part anime series.
Yeah, and
just before Perish Parasite, there's the whole thing about when the Guyver goes into him.
Yeah,
and he becomes that.
Yes, which is why it's quite challenging to share that album digitally as well.
It might need to get some right. I'm saying that, I'm pretty sure Special Moves still have the Star Wars.
Okay. Yeah.
Thing on theirs, and it's just like it's out there. So.
Yeah. So, and some of that anime was just, you know, I think the kind of concept and how it evolved of this like almost post-apocalyptic kind of future, and it just kind of fit. But it's kind of always been around as well. So you have these interludes throughout the album. Some will be anime. Some will be Pi doing some like bass loops that he was quite into, and like layered bass loops. Some has Josh, guitarist of Stout, playing theremin. But like weird. Why not? Because like, you know, there wasn't enough going on already, and we decided to, on the actual like CD, number the interludes as tracks, but not reflect that in the actual artwork. So like the track names and numbers don't match up if you're like listening on CD, which is like a pointless kind of stupid thing to do, but it was just tells you like what happened to our brains, I think, over like recording all this music together and just thinking about it way too much. Other things as well, like I wanted the lyrics to be like hidden almost like in the Matrix. So if you look at the booklet, there's like all the
like ones and zeros.
it's all ones and zeros, and then the lyrics sort of like come out of that, which makes it really hard to read. Like, why would you do that? But again, it was this theme of like wanting like people, if you want to go deep on this, you can, and there's a lot there, and you kind of have to get the most out of it. Also,
are you going to tell me that the binary means something as well now?
I hid within the binary numbers some significant dates from history, which if you look through, you'll find them like, I don't know, like JFK's assassination date, for instance, is in there, and some other things I can't remember. But if you find them and like search for them, you'll see that they can link to something significant for no good reason.
Fair enough. just to fuck with people even further.
Yeah, I think it wasn't in the intention one. Well, it was a little bit, but it was to like provide some depth that's there for people who wanted to kind of engage with it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think the album's amazing. It does musically, it does everything that I like, because you've got, like you said, you've got the straightforward hardcore parts of it, like the fast, almost knuckle dusty parts. You've got beatdown sections, and then you've got the crazy tech sections that are almost reminiscent of like a Dillinger Escape Plan. Yeah. I've always said the album sounds like Dillinger playing Ninebar.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good description. That's kind of, yeah. There's like definitely some of that like chaos that someone like the EP would bring. But yeah, we always, it's a hardcore band, right? And from South London. And so, yes, Ninebar and yes, Knuckle Dust. And like, we love all that music. And so we wanted to push things, but we wanted to keep things anchored in hardcore as well. We didn't want to go too far.
Trying to think, like, how was it to play live? That must have been an absolute nightmare. Because I know Azzy Dahaka never got played live.
No, I don't think we did. Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. It's like physically for like, I don't know, like Sam to play the drum parts on like some of those songs live. It was just like a lot.
I saw Sam get ill a couple of times. Like we pretty much carried him out the back of the 12 bar and stuff like that because he was like really rough after one of the sets.
Yeah. And we didn't play a lot, but just through the course of, I think, trying to get as close to perfect as we could on the album, we were quite tight. So yeah, we I wouldn't say it was easy to play, but like we were quite well drilled and we were pretty tight at that by that point, just having like been in the same room for hours and days, just trying to get these tunes right on record.
I mean, as vocalist, like, so did you have the lyrics and that ready to go prior to the music being written? Did you know what it was going to be, or did you wait for the music to come in and then
waited for the music to come in? And like,
proven.
Yeah, that was my preference there. I just wanted to like be additive and not sort of directive, if you know what I mean, because I knew they would come up with some amazing shit. So like and then what I wanted to do was try and match that energy in the approach to the vocals and yeah, I mean, lyrics aside, I tried to switch up like vocal styles a little bit, like clean singing parts and almost not quite like rapping, but like getting close to it, and some parts are just a little bit of an edge. I think we all quite liked E-Town Concrete as well, so that was a bit of an influence as well in the way that we approached it.
Because there's like several tracks where you're all on, that you all do some vocal part. I think it's Forever Diehard, where everyone's got some vocal part on it.
Yeah, and so those tunes that came from the demo are very much kind of like that. And I can't remember, another interesting choice that we made was to just have the demo songs at the start of the album in the exact same order that they were on the demo. I can remember Fatty from Ninebar like just being like, why are you doing that? Like, don't do that. And I was like, well, we have to do it because it's a concept and that's in the narrative order, and so happy. Like, of course we have to.
I can only imagine Fatty's reaction when you told him that.
Yeah. And so like those songs, yeah, they do sound a bit more like sort of Gang, and you have like Nick Diction on there kind of coming in. There's actually, we played Ninja Fest one year, and there's
2007, 2008, I think it was.
Yeah, 2007 sounds about right. Because I was actually briefly playing guitar in Dirty Money for a little while.
Right. Yeah.
I remember I just come back from tour with them like the night before or something, and then Hellbent were on first, and I was late. Uh, they were all set up when I got there. But yeah, we played some of the demo songs. There's a recording of that on YouTube, and like there was a really interesting dynamic with like Nick coming in, me doing vocals, so like two people from Diction doing the vocals. It was kind of like,
yeah,
those tunes were interesting, but you see as the album goes on, it becomes like more just me, really, which sort of reflects where I think the band was heading from, like originally sounding like this sort of like crew kind of sound to being something a little bit different.
More of a straight band sort of thing, because it's like, I think Cursed, that's the end of the demo tracks, is it? Or
No, Curse was not on the demo. I think we did do a demo of like some of the tracks, but like some of those songs that I think are like very like singular expression of, I don't know, me, if you like, and like my thing about the band was, I think Perish Parasite is probably the best, or my favorite tune on that record. Just because I think it does that thing of just being like a straight up hardcore tune.
I remember Perish Parasite being on someone's MySpace page.
Maybe, yeah.
Like it might have been Matty Barr had it, like the demo version of it on like his MySpace page or some shit like that. Because I remember seeing Perish Parasite years before, like a long time before the album dropped.
Yeah, we had that for a while. Yeah, but that one, and then Cursed as well, is like, you know, again, like less of a gang song. Or like, Pi does some vocals on that as well.
Because he does the I've Been Cursed. So,
yeah. But those songs, like, I think are like a really good expression of kind of where my head was at. Like what we were trying to do as a band, like complexity, but only if you're kind of looking for it. They have like this narrative theme underneath, but not really like that obvious. It's like you'd have to know the narrative to really get there. So
that's why I'm surprised you never finished writing a narrative, because it's like it's kind of, you've made it intrinsic to the songs.
Yeah, it exists like mostly in my head. And you know, maybe, I don't know,
Can you remember
my old age,
you remember where it went?
I've got some notebooks somewhere that probably like spell it out a little bit further, but like it's not fully formed like it would need to be. Yeah, I could probably I had like an ending in mind, and in fact
So I assume Triumph is technically the ending.
It's kind of it's like that's when they win the battle. We used to call that song before it was, when I was thinking about it, it was like, I used to refer to it as like an Ewok dance party. So, you know, at the end of that Star Wars movie where they're all celebrating. And that was the vibe.
The Jedi.
But really it's the last tune on the album that I think talks about where the duality, which, by the way, people were like, why did you call a song Duality when Slipknot had a big song called Duality? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've not been paying attention to like the outside world beyond like writing lyrics for this album for like months. I was like, I don't know. I wasn't really into that band anyway. But yeah, Duality like speaks to like what was going to be the ending of the first chapter. So it's about someone kind of like losing their mind. And that was going to be a strand to the next.
Because obviously Triumph has the big speech section in the middle of it.
Yeah, it does, and that was kind of like, so this gang living in the future being like overcoming all odds, like defeating their enemies basically. But then it's almost like the narrative when like they reach that high point, but there's actually something else going on, which is the main protagonist like slightly losing their mind, and that would have been, and that was also, you know, kind of how I felt as well after the time writing the album and recording it.
Just slowly going insane doing it. Because for me, the speech part in Triumph kind of sums up, and obviously you wrote it, so I don't know, but it sums up like how a lot of like I look at London hardcore in general, like, and how it has been over the years. Like LBU has struggled and stuff like that, and people have put us down and people have slagged us off and this, that, and the other. And yet, someone once said to me, I think it was John from Repentance, was like, Ruction and LBU's like a fucking cockroach. You could nuke them and they'd still exist.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, fair to say about Triumph and what we're trying to express. Like, I think Me personally, yeah, a lot of like knockdowns and things happen to me in life, but keep going, get back up. In fact, like if you listen to some of the lyrics that uh, some of the in fact on the Time to Ruction, Time for Some Ruction Volume 2, Hellbent contribute a track to that, which is called Do Your Worst.
Yeah.
Which, like, we hadn't got into that. Sounds like a Crowbar tune, actually. If you listen to that, that's got that.
Yeah, that sounds very different to the album. Is that when Mark was still playing bass for you? Because Pie Man hadn't joined up that point.
No, we've had another bass player doing some stuff for us. Yeah, I can't remember, but that has that. There's very, but like the spirit of that song is also in Triumph. So, and like it's something that is like a common theme in my life, anyways. And like some of the lyrics are like, seems like I've had enough. That's when I like get back up. Basically, is the like, never be put down. And I think that is something that's common to Ruction, LBU, like sort of defiance in the face of, like difficult odds that, and the hands that some people have been dealt in their life early on, and sort of overcoming that and using the music as a way to kind of overcome some of that and build a different sort of life. So Triumph was a bit of that, and as well as being an Ewok dance party or whatever, and narrative part, it was about
I've now got a very different image for that video.
And a lot of that, and the same with duality. Like I don't know, speak about my mental health problems that people face, and around that time, when I wrote those lyrics, I was definitely like going through some stuff. And Cursed as well is another one. Like it does have all these sort of like elements that I just spoke to, but it's also about like my own kind of inner monologue, because I think a lot of people,
I think that's always going to come through though, like obviously, because doesn't matter what your concept is, the whole point is like you're still going to be expressing what's going on in your life through the lens of that concept.
And that's what I think. Even though we were trying to draw parallels with things that were happening in the world and in society, and not to make it completely abstract, but well, not sure we achieved that, but the idea was that narrative concept was reflective of things that were actually happening in society.
And the thing is, like, you can definitely, like, I have many times just listened to it as a straight hardcore album and just not paid attention to what I know is going on deeper. But to be fair, had I not been told about there's a deeper thing from Adam, from yourself, from Ian and stuff in the past, I probably wouldn't have even gone looking for it, because it works as a hardcore album.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you wanted, really, or certainly what I wanted. I know, speak for the rest of them, I know. But that was definitely what I wanted. I didn't want it to like not be something for everyone. I don't think it is for everyone, by the way. I think there's just like enough oddball shit going on throughout it that that might not work for everyone. And there's certain things that are like quite distinctive and kind of London about it. But I think there's tunes like Parish Parasite, which you can just take at face value.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it has to work for everyone. I have my personal opinions on it, and I've made them abundantly clear over the years. I think it's still the best thing that's come out of UK hardcore, full stop. I know a billion people probably disagree with that, because they all have like Special Move or Knuckle Dust or stuff like that, like above it. And unfortunately, because you didn't get to play live that much when the album came out, because you was only around for like a few months after the album dropped.
I think so. Yes. Feel bad about that.
Yeah, that would have been. I mean, there's always a chance for a reunion, mate.
I mean, never say never.
I've seen Pie Man.
Yeah, recently. That's him.
Yeah, I saw him at E-Town.
Oh, yeah. He went to that.
He was at the E-Town show. That's the last time I saw him. But because I know he disappeared, went to work in India making beer.
Yeah, he did. People went off and did their own thing. Some people, started new bands, which I was glad to see. Sam, blew after Slab Dragger, which is like not a hardcore band, but a really good band, and I think they did some.
They've blown up as well in that sort of doom sludge scene. They're really like well known now in that scene.
Yeah, and
fucking good band as well.
Yeah, really good band, really amazing band, worth checking out if you haven't. Pi went to India to start India's first craft brewery. Pi was is a brewer, head brewer.
Yeah.
still doing that in London. Um, yeah, I carried on in Diction, but more so in Ninebar, we're much more active.
Yeah.
For a good few years after that. So we all had our own things going on, but I think it was just like not on the cards to do Hellbent again.
I knew Sam was ill and struggling with playing the drum parts for a couple of years.
Yeah, possibly. I think it was just like intense, like play, and we didn't play enough to like really get into a groove of being like a live band. And I think if you do that, some of those things just you can manage them a little bit better. Even for me, vocalist, I'm not like I don't really wouldn't see myself as a singer. And like even that it was hard for me to do those tunes because just not used to singing live. I think if we'd done it a bit more, we'd have got more into like a relaxed groove. But it is.
I remember seeing you guys with Stout when Stout were over for that Weekender.
Yeah,
I think the King's Cross show, the Cross King's show for that.
Yeah, we actually played more shows than I remember when I like look at flight. Oh yeah, we did. So we did okay, but like really didn't leave London either. And yeah, we're just playing shows locally for like a little period after the album came out, and then just kind of fizzled out. Is how I describe it.
And then there was an issue where some CDs went missing. Or something. I remember saying about that.
Yeah, I don't want to get too into that one, but like it kind of spoke to just chaotic.
It's London hardcore. It's
it's London hardcore. That's every band. Maybe it's me. I don't know. Every band.
You, despite being like one of the most stable people within the scene I know, cause chaos around them.
Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just me. Yeah, that particular episode called Pierre Nokodas calling me up at like 6 a.m. in the morning, which was an interesting call, but all good. It's just like I say, London hardcore is what it is.
Yeah. So Sam has spoken about remixing the album to get it up digitally at some point. Does that mean having to remove a load of the samples from it? I'm guessing, or
I don't really know. I mean, yeah, I think remaster. I think we also always wanted to have it on vinyl because I think like that would be the kind of perfect listening experience. Just so in the way that you mentioned it's been uploaded on YouTube and it's not been broken up into tracks, maybe because the person who did that was like, I can't be asked.
Where are the track listings?
So it kind of on YouTube you have to listen to it in its entirety in like. Well, I mean, obviously you don't have to, but that's kind of how it's presented. And so I think like an actual record vinyl would be interesting way because you would just kind of sit and kind of just get through it. In terms of some remastering for that purpose,
that's why you say get through it like it'd be a fucking chore.
Endurance test.
Get through it. Welcome to a war zone of listening to Hellbent Diehard.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that I've got a little bit of PTSD about the whole process in the way that I talk about it. So I think that'd be interesting. Sam wanted to do that for that purpose. I think it'd be interesting. Yeah, I think maybe we'd probably have to drop some of the samples, but I think that might change the vibes a little bit. So I don't know how down I am with that, but that'd be interesting. I kind of quite like the fact that it's not really up online and like it's not easily accessible because in my mind that kind of works with
I have to send it to people. I literally have to get the MP3 files that I've scanned into my computer and send it to people to be like, you need to listen to this fucking album.
So it's like it's not something you can just go and find. You have to, or you don't come across it. Like you have to go and like find it. Which
you have to know it exists, and then you have to go and find it.
Yeah, which is so like self-sabotaging, but I think that is very much like on brand for Hellbent Diehard.
It certainly adds to like the quote-unquote mystique of the band, I guess, and it adds that sort of aura of like, who are these people? Who the fuck were they? And what were they doing?
Yeah, no, like I think that's like music that I appreciate, that you discover something and you're like, what? Why did they do any of this? What were they going through? What are they thinking? Like, technically, like very interesting. Like, who were these people that did this thing? And so there's something in my mind that quite likes that it's not kind of
I
readily
think
available.
that's very much. Think about like outside of our own bands. Think about in hardcore in general. Our generation came up with that sort of having to discover stuff. It wasn't just presented to us, and I've said it many times on this podcast. You know what I mean? It was you'd find an album you liked it, you go for the thanks list.
Yeah.
See the bands. Sometimes you might buy an album just on the basis of the artwork on the front of it and be like, that looks interesting. I'll pick that up and see what it's like. And pray to God that it was any fucking good when you got it home, sort of thing.
Yeah, because you spent, I don't know, like £15 on some imported CD that you get read about in a thanks list, and yeah, it turns out to be terrible. You're just kind of nothing you can do. Yeah, maybe it's a bit like that. That feeling of discovering something that's like hidden, I think, something that's kind of like appealed to me, not in the interest of being like really obscure in my tastes and like gatekeepy and kind of, but just like that moment of discovery and going, oh, what's happening here? Like, how did this come about?
Yeah.
And behind this, the way that music did that, in the way that you describe, and like it sort of, you then find other things through it as well, other bands and scenes that you didn't know about.
Yeah, technically like discovering our own scene, because like you kind of, back with us, you kind of tripped over UK and London hardcore. It wasn't something that was presented in any way, shape or form. There was no real online forums like there is now, like social media and that for it. You kind of, you knew someone who knew someone, you kind of stumbled into it.
Yeah,
that
definitely word of mouth. Yeah, definitely word of mouth. I think for me personally, like Knuckle Dust was very much like that. You know, I can remember Nick from Diction being on that a little bit earlier than me, and at first, like, yeah, I've been listening to a load of like Ignite and Sick of It All, and then, you know, you hear and Knuckle Dust, and you're like, what's happening here? And like, I'm not sure I really understand this. And then you're like, oh, but this is from London, and like, there's something else going on here. And then I think discovering Ninebar was like just like a revelation to us at the time. We were like, because I think one thing that wasn't connecting with me was a lot of, not so much hardcore and like US hardcore, but like heavy music more generally. It was like just the whole like, I don't know, like greb goth kind of, I don't know, like
yeah.
I think I wanted to be normal, but listen to very heavy music, and like I didn't want the other stuff associated with that. So when hardcore came along, it was like, oh, it is heavy music played by people wearing sportswear, and then discovering like Knuckle Dust and Ninebar, and you're like, particularly Ninebar, you're like, oh, it's this band in South London who playing like this heavy, beat down, like intense music, and yeah, they just like dress normally. Well, most of the band dress normally.
With Ninebar, I always found that like it was almost, because I'd heard things like Bulldoze at that point, but there was something about Ninebar that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know what it is about this band. It's like they're really good and yet also really bad at putting together a song structure. And like everything I knew about music at that point, they completely ignored.
Yeah, I think Urban Legends is like a really good example of that. Like, it's chaotic in a like way that kind of doesn't make sense to your brain at first. You're just like, what's happening here? But then, like, I don't know, Ballistic Trauma is just like, is one of those songs where you're like, yeah, what? It just kind of goes. It's very linear. It doesn't like really repeat. And you know, but it's also brilliant, and like the lyrics are just incredible. And I can remember hearing that and just being like, what is going on? And just being like, yes, this is the thing.
If it's the original recording you've heard of it, it sounds sketchy as fuck as well.
Oh yeah.
There's obviously the 2005 Crow's Nest remaster of it that Matty went back in and re-recorded some guitar parts.
Yeah. Funny story about that. Just saying, checked. I was doing that, and I was going to play second guitar on that remaster. And then I just, this sounds really bad. I just couldn't really be bothered, so I just let Matt do it.
So
I was like, yeah, because some of the songs we didn't play live as much, so I had to sort of like learn songs, and like I was three bands at the time, and I was just like, do you know what, Matt, you just do it.
You know the songs, you wrote them off.
Yeah, I was just like, it's gonna be quicker. I
like the remaster, but the original version just sounds so fucking sketchy that it's like, that's what Ninebar was.
And that's what I can remember about Ninebar, and you know, when they asked me to join, and it was like your favorite band being like, do you want to come play for us? Be like, well, living the dream.
Well, that was similar for me when Mark approached me for Proven, because he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm Mark. I used to be in Hellbent Diehard," and I was like, "What?" It's just like, "Do you want to come do this new band with me? We've got this demo." It took me 2 years to write the lyrics for it
There you go.
because I was scared of fucking it up.
Yeah, I mean, like similar experience with Hellbent Diehard, right? That's like why I wanted to, you know, write the lyrics for that band, sing for that band, be a part of that band, because I think,
Yeah.
I didn't think people would take the care with it that it maybe deserved, and that's probably a little bit egotistical of me, but I do remember feeling it at the time.
Yeah, just like I remember hearing the 5 tunes that they sent me, and I was just like, "These are incredible." I mean, I was I was told distinctly by Adam, "We're not trying to be hellbent. We want to make the song simpler." And I'm like, "Fine, cool. Let's not go fucking crazy." And that held up until the second, like the split we did with Tirade. And then they wrote that fucking first track that we play on that, and I'm just like, I thought you weren't going to do anything crazy. This is 4.5 minutes, and it goes fucking everywhere. What are you talking about?
Yeah, just can't help themselves. Yeah, but yeah, it's that thing. I guess like I don't know. You want to respect the and match the energy that people put into their writing when you come to do the lyrics, and you don't want to just like I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's just do something about
It
backstabbing.
literally became a point where I was like, right, I'm gonna get a second vocalist because like I I'm struggling here to not fuck this up. So like, literally straight on to like Gino, like, "Oh, do you want to join a band now?"
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
It's like, yeah, and he turned out to be one of the best frontmen we could have possibly had. I hope for.
Yeah, and good, and continues to be a good frontman elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you look at him in Ironed Out, like he's really settled into that role now of like he's going to be the voice. It's like what Fate does for Ninebar, he does for all the bands. He's like, you got 2 vocalists, but he's your focal point, which suited me fine because I'm quite happy to be the guy that just stands back and like, you chat bollocks, you entertain the crowd. I'm just going to do my lyrics and that's it.
Yeah, it's good when you find dynamics like that in bands. Like I don't know, someone's got to be the organizer, someone's got to be the spokesperson. You just need people.
How did you find it being a frontman? Like when you, because obviously you've been a guitarist for a good few years by that point, and then you're like, right now I've got to be the guy up front, sort of thing.
Yeah, it was different. I, I think in some ways, just from that like spokesperson point of view, I think Nick is someone from Diction who admits himself is not like someone that's particularly like talkative on stage, like between songs and that kind of thing. So I was kind of doing a bit of that for Diction anyway. Felt pretty at home on stage, but I can remember it being quite odd at first, like not having something to hold. Like, oh, what do I do with my hands? So I remember that feeling a bit different, but it felt pretty natural. I don't think I was the best at it. It was fine. I enjoyed it. But it didn't feel like home to me. If you know, it was felt a little bit like not quite what I should be doing.
I mean, I suppose because obviously by the time you did, when was the first Hellbent live show? When did you play your first? 2003, 2004?
Yeah, it would have been around then.
So you've probably been playing guitar live for a good like 7-8 years by that point. You're comfortable doing that.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, and now we're going to strip away the guitar that you can hide behind and make you talk to everyone.
Yeah, there was a bit of that definitely. Yeah, and probably some like nerves that weren't there before. Weirdly, just like even though I'd done this hundreds of times, just like being that, being a singer is just a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, first time I ever, because I've always been a vocalist, so first time I ever got on stage as just being a vocalist, mate, I was just, first time I did it live at the 12 bar, I shat myself. And everyone's like, "Oh, but it's your mates, it's your mates, your mates." It's just like, that makes it worse.
Yeah, because you know everyone in there.
I know everyone in there, and I also know they will straight up tell me it was shit if it was shit.
Fair. But you want that sort of feedback to help you improve.
Yeah, definitely. But like, I think the first time I played 12 bar would have been with No Survivors, which became War Christ down the line sort of thing. But yeah, it's just being like in that 12 bar, being like, "Oh fuck, there's Fatty over there," and there's
yeah, all these people that you respect and have been doing it for years and very good at it.
How did you get Stout involved, or Josh Stout involved in stuff? Was it when they was? It must have been obviously when they was over in general.
Yeah, I think that was probably a Sam connect, I imagine. I think he and Josh maybe been chatting about music, and Josh is like, you know,
Yeah,
like has a very like varied and interesting set of like musical tastes and interests and experiences, and I think Sam is someone who's kind of similar, and I think that was like what connected them, and I imagine that's what happened. I didn't really like participate in that part of this discussion about therapy.
I know, because I know Ted also appeared on another one of Sam's projects doing vocals. It's a track with him, DBS, and I think Mad Joe, all on one track. I think it's Hench Beast.
Yeah.
Is it the Hench Beast or something else? It's one of them other weird studio projects that he was putting together.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, we kind of had a lot of those, like a few things that kind of got started and like never finished. There's a lot of weed flying about at the time, obviously, and you might imagine that's creatively helpful sometimes, but also means you don't finish a bunch of stuff. Yeah, we had lots of like little projects that maybe recorded like one song, but some of those would end up becoming Hellbent songs, or they'd become a Diction song. There's a couple of Diction songs that didn't start as Diction songs that were just like, I don't know, me and kind of jamming.
Yeah, and it's like, oh fuck it, we'll use that. It transfers across. Did you get involved in writing music for Hellbent at any point? Because obviously, as a guitarist, you must have been like, Yeah.
No, I really had no interest in doing that. I just wanted to let them kind of go at it and not like influence or steer it too much. And yeah, like I said, more react to it than like input into that aspect. But, like, yeah, we were spending a lot of time together and like shaping each other's thinking and influences. And so indirectly, maybe, but yeah, I wouldn't give my credit for any.
Not intentionally.
No.
You were more like, well, I'll keep my wrist for Diction.
Yeah, exactly. And Ninebar stuff here and there. I wouldn't say I wrote a lot for Ninebar, but bits and pieces.
Do you miss, like, because you're obviously, with your current job and all the rest of it, you're traveling a hell of a lot back and forth between here and the States. Do you kind of want to do another band? You ever thought about doing anything more now, or?
I think it's kind of gone in me. I spent a long period of my life quite, there was times when I was in 3 bands at once who were like fairly active. I spent 20 years doing it, and now I just think things have like changed in my brain a little bit, where I don't crave it in the same way. Partly that is having kids. I think when my daughter, my first child, was like 1 year old, I was like, I've like lost something here that is driving me to do this, or something that's like changed in me. Yeah. But also something clicked in my brain where I was like, look, if I want to try and get myself and my young family into a better situation, then I need to like trim down things in my life that aren't helping me do that. And look, I got so much out of hardcore at my time, and lifelong friends I still deeply value, respect everyone involved, particularly LBU and Ruction family, who like got me through some like very hard times in my life, and I'll never forget that. But I just, when I started to have my own small family, I was like, I think I need to refocus a little bit here. I definitely miss the people a lot more than anything, I would say. But yeah, it's just life changes.
I am going to push at some point for a fucking Hellbent reunion show. Even if it's just one. Now that I know Pyroman's back in the country, I'm going to find... I can't contact the fucker. He's still like completely off the grid, it seems.
I have ways. We have WhatsApp. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say no. So
if you ever get the vinyl release going, I think then I'll be the first person being like, right, I'm booking you, I'm putting you on fucking your headline in New Cross, let's fucking go. And I would push the shit out of it, because I'm like, right, I think it's a band that too many youngsters don't know at this point. And I can hear the influence, because I know I've played it to some people And like for example, Life of One, I watched them live the other day when they're playing with Archangel, and there was definitely parts where I was like, oh, that sounds a bit Hellbent-ish. And I've heard it in Split Knuckle as well. Obviously, it's like, and again, like I don't say that because I've shown it to them and they've listened to it, they've gone and written stuff like that. But I can definitely hear like, oh, that sounds Hellbent-ish, and it'd be great to have like the band that I think influenced a lot of that style from London.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the scenario I could see where maybe we pushed technicality a little bit, and like I don't know, people wanted to have some of that in their own music.
There's you guys, and there's BDF.
Yeah, I think that's
back. Like,
yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I think there'd have to be a moment to do any kind of reunion, like something to happen, and whether like a reissue or whatever else. Because I don't think we could do more than like one or two shows. Actually, I think that's gonna.
Yeah.
Not because like we hate each other or anything, but I just like we just had this
life
together making that album, and life, and just like it is quite intense to do those songs. And so like I would have to spend like a couple of months like really preparing to do that. Like mentally.
Must do Azzy Dahaka live.
yeah, it would just be a lot. But I'm not against it for the right moment. Interesting talking about New Cross. Like I lived round the corner from the New Cross Inn for years and years and years. Never had any trouble. And then I moved, and I had this hardcore show every other week. Don't know.
Yeah, like it became. I don't know exactly when it became the sort of go-to point, because obviously for us it was always 12 bar growing up. And then when that closed down, there was a secondary 12 bar for about a year or so.
Yeah.
And then the Unicorn in Camden. And then, because it's pre-COVID, it started taking off before COVID hit. But suddenly it was like, I think Eddie, who did Upsurge, was there. And he was like the in-house promoter at the time.
Yeah.
And so he started booking lots of hardcore stuff there.
Yeah, it's
after our first couple of years, we started booking stuff there.
Yeah.
We started doing the fest there every year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
and then
crazy.
Theo's taken over, and he puts on something almost every week at least.
Yeah, and the some legendary bands coming through, and I'm just like, why?
When you got E-Town, everyone was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, and E-Town, one of my favorite bands ever. I couldn't actually make that show. I think I was traveling. But yeah, like for them to be playing in New Cross, just like literally like 2 minutes from my house, where I live. Why was that not happening when I lived there? What are the chances?
I wonder if like, it depends on who was owning the venue, I guess, at the time, or whether they wanted that kind of shit there. Because the guy who owns it now, I've spoken to briefly on the phone when we were putting stuff there, and he's like, he wants live music there every single night. To him, it's like it doesn't matter if it makes a loss, because he makes his money elsewhere.
Interesting.
So he's kind of like, I just want to have a venue that puts music on live.
Well, look, if you want to lose money on something, hardcore is your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anyone that's promoted a show will tell you about money lost down the drain.
Oh yeah, just playing in bands, putting on shows. Yeah, you're not saying that.
Did you book for the cartoon as well at any point? Did you book shows?
That's what it was. More Nick did it. I would help out like promotion and stuff and flying. But yeah, it was really Nick, and yeah, we had some interesting bands.
Cartoon was a fun venue.
It was a bit of a bonkers venue. Just it had this reputation. I think maybe in the 80s, been in like a biker spot, and I don't know, there was some story about like a motorbike got thrown through the window and then it shut down for years and years and years. And I opened it back up and trying to get it going. They would do weird club nights and stuff, and start putting on shows there. Knuckle Dust, Ninebar. I think we played there. Bands like Kanan played there. We had quite.
That was like, because you'd have had the whole Kent scene and Canterbury thing, like would have been going through coming up to Croydon as well, I assume.
Yeah. Oh, it's just it was located in like slightly unfortunate spot. It wasn't the best, but like, what are you gonna do?
To be fair, the New Cross Indies are located in a pretty unfortunate spot.
Similar vibes, I would say.
Everyone voted around it, just like. Someone said the other day, like, they love it when American bands come over and play the New Cross in because they're suddenly surrounded by all these crazy like crack addicts and stuff like that, and they're just like, oh, this happens over here as well, and it's like, yes, we have similar problems to America. What a surprise!
Yeah, I mean, yeah, New Cross has quite a storied history in London hardcore in terms of shows that happened there, like Goldsmiths Tavern.
What was the venue we used to use down there before? Because it wasn't New Cross Inn, was it? It was
Goldsmiths Tavern, I think it was. That was one of the venues.
Was the Hobgoblin ever used by our lot? I remember seeing some metal shows at the Hobgoblin down there.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I didn't know. I mean, those New Cross shows were actually slightly before my time, like mid-90s. And really, I mean, 98, I think. Probably when I started those properly. But I would hear stories about New Cross. And I think the vibe of New Cross is still there.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
There's a reason.
I remember... I literally remember being, it was the Ready Fest we had, it was Stryford had been the night before and Archangel were on the Saturday. And I'd got to the venue not realising it was that early and was sat outside, no one had opened the venue up yet, it was still locked. And I was sat there with a bag of cash, probably about $6 or $7 grand in a duffel bag, just sat outside the New Cross Inn being like, please someone come and fucking open up. Like, just let me in because I can do without this shit.
Yeah, it's that high street is full of character, I think is how you describe it.
Yeah, it's definitely like a bit of a mad area.
Yeah, there's a reason we moved when my second kid came along.
Was you there for that until then? I thought you moved out a lot longer for that.
No. Yeah, we were just like, I just can't deal with. There's just so much broken glass everywhere. There's like a carpet of broken glass in New Cross. You just like, I don't want kids walking through this. So yeah, we move on. No,
was you working where you work now at that time, or?
Was I working? No, not. No, tell a lie. I just started.
Yeah, fair enough. So, did you start traveling straight away at that point, or was you?
Pretty much. This job that I do now, it takes up quite a bit of my time. As soon as I started that, I was in California for 2 weeks, came back a week, went back to New York, and it's...
Yeah, like I said, I remember when you first sort of started, it was like you just would disappear for weeks on end and then come back.
Yeah, which when you have a 6-month-old baby at home is not ideal. But it's kind of been on and off like that for a little bit, which also means that music would just not be viable for me.
That's fair enough.
An intense job, which is a good job, but it just does take a lot of my time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, Chris, really appreciate you spending your time coming on. Definitely needed to get you on. I've been waiting to talk to someone from Hellbent and properly preach the gospel of the greatest album UK hardcore ever fucking released.
That's kind of you say, John. Thank you very much for having me on.
You're welcome, man.
Up and chat shit for a little while. Thank you for the kind words about Hellbent. I know you're
always, man,
someone who appreciates that album, and I'm really glad you do, because we put a lot into it, and I'm not sure it's very widely known. But maybe this podcast will change that a little bit.
Yeah, it is available on YouTube. You can find it. I will try to include a link somewhere on the podcast bottom to that link for, I don't know whose YouTube channel it is. It's just some random fucking channel that put it up. But I will include a link to it because I genuinely think it's one of the best things. Well, it is the best thing that ever came out of UK hardcore. I think it's unknown its quantity, but I think it's really important as an album musically. So I'll definitely include the link here. But yeah, Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.
Take care, and we'll see you next week for what will be the final episode of the series. So guys, take care. We'll see you then.